Well, I am privileged to be joined today by Zach Weinberger of the Palm Beach Post. He covers FAU. UCF's got a road game this Saturday down south in Boca Raton. Welcome, Zach. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, thank you for having me, Brandon. I'm excited to be
Yeah,
on.
yeah. So wanted to obviously talk to an expert, and I know in addition to covering the team, I know you graduated from FAU, so I assume you've been following the program even longer than obviously you've been with the Palm Beach Post. Just kind of talk to me a little bit about this early season for FAU. I know they were one of the teams that started in week 0, beat Charlotte in a Conference USA game 43-13. Next weekend, the following weekend, they went on the road to Ohio, lost a shootout. It looks like 41-38. I know Ohio wasn't. I think they were 3-9 team last year, so I'm sure that was a little bit disappointing. And this past weekend had a big 42-9 victory at home against FCS Southeastern Louisiana. So how would you kind of, I guess, characterize this early season so far for FAU?
Yeah, so far so good, right? I mean, there was a lot of expectations, going into the season. Obviously year 3 into Taggart. You want to have that really good last season before you head to the American Conference and really make a splash there. Obviously FAU wanted to start 3-0 heading into a game like UCF, and then after Purdue, you want to be 3-0 there, but you got to do what you got to do with this record you have. Obviously it was very disappointing against Ohio, especially defensively, which looking back from last season, the defense really carried the team a lot last season when the offense a lot stalled in a lot of games. Losing 4 straight to end the season without a bowl game. So far so good. And arguably again this Saturday, it's the biggest game of the season, arguably for FAU. I know I've seen a lot of debate here and there. What's more important, getting a win against UCF or winning a conference championship? And listen, I could see either way. A win against UCF, an upset there, that's going to jolt the fan base heavy. It's going to be a rowdy. It's going to be rowdy on Saturday. It's going to be a fun. It's going to be a fun game. But again, if you want to see major improvement in this team, like me and the fans have been wanting to see, getting an upset win against UCF is a great step in the right direction for sure.
Yeah, on that note, I'm looking this up right now. I'm just trying to brush up on my FAU football history. What would you say, if you know off the top of your head, what are some of the biggest wins in program history, particularly big wins at home? Um, has there
Yeah,
been any notable wins?
yeah, I'm trying to think, and really, it has to. The first things that come to mind are the Kiffin years when they won the conference championship here, or even beating SMU in the Boca Bowl, which was an upset there. But they've been wanting to prove themselves against an in-state rival, and
Right.
and UCF. That's obviously a huge win. Obviously, it seems like USF might be the next rival going into the AAC, but obviously we'll see when that comes around. But yeah, definitely those conference championship wins. And again, I feel like before Kiffin, fans have been craving a big opportunity championship contending team, and Kiffin obviously brought that. And obviously Tiger has to fill in those shoes now. But I would say probably those conference championship wins and maybe the
Okay.
Boca Bowl.
Oh yeah, that sort of makes sense when you say fans are amped up for this one, maybe more so than conference. I feel like UCF fans for a long time they would get amped up about some of the non-conference games more so than the conference, so that's understandable. What's kind of the jury on Willie Taggart? Obviously, Lane Kiffin replacing a successful coach that won CUSA championships. I know his first season was 2020, which I don't know if that really counts. That was such a weird year with everything going on. I think he was 5-4 with the limited schedule last year. I take it was a little disappointing, right? Because going into November was what 5-3, I believe, and losing the final, like basically lost every game in the month of November, did not reach a bowl game. So what's kind of how are people feeling about the Willie Taggart tenure? Is this sort of a season where people are hoping to turn the page and have a winning season and contend for a conference?
Yeah, I feel like in the past couple years, and even before Taggart has been in FAU, he always has a target on his back. Well, going back to FSU, going back to Oregon, but obviously it's the same thing here. Obviously, again, you go on Twitter, hashtag FAU, you're gonna see people that want to see Taggart succeed and people that are already want to fire the guy. You always see under my tweets during a game if they're having a disappointing drive, even one offensive drive, hashtag fire Taggart. It's like it's always there. But again, for me personally, the players want to play for him. There's no doubt about that. It just they got to show it off, obviously on the field. I remember last season when we lost against Middle Tennessee in the season finale. Guys like Evan Anderson, arguably the best defensive player on the team, and just other players were sort of saying, like, no, don't fire Taggart. Like, this is on us, sort of thing. So there's no question that they want to play from. But really, the answer, and it might sound like a cop out answer, but people just don't know about Willie Taggart and what the future will be here at FAU. And to me, I've said this before, the past 2 seasons, you want him to get the guys in here to succeed. Recruiting trails, you want to give him a couple years. And now, to me, this is the season that you need to show some form of improvement. To me, the minimum you can do is make a bowl game. I feel like that's what people are just asking for. You can't lose the last 4 straight games. You're scoring at least 17 points a game. It's just not going to get the job done. So you want to see major improvement. And to me, in my opinion, from what I've seen in the in spring preseason, especially in the first 3 games, there's some talent here to do it.
And UCF fans, they're very familiar with Willie Taggart because from his South Florida days, I think there was end of the season, it was UCF USF in 2016. And Taggart could have taken a knee. I can't remember the score offhand, but they had a pretty large margin. Could have taken a knee, run the score out, and he decided to score another touchdown in I think it was the final 10 seconds of the game. And I think that was Scott Frost's first year at UCF. That kind of rubbed him the wrong way, and I guess he wasn't around after that at USF and moved on. But the UCF people are at least fans are very familiar with Willie Taggart. So as when you look at the offense, Miami quarterback transfer N'Kosi Perry, this is what he's going to be his second year starting.
Yeah.
And this is a 6th overall year as a football player, right? Because he redshirted 1 year in Miami. He's got the extra COVID years. So what's kind of the outlook for him? Was he a little bit up and down last season? Is he look improved this season? How has he performed so far after 3 games?
Well, you kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of last season, and I always say this, and they always harp on it as well. When N'Kosi came into the program, he missed all of spring last year, so he really didn't. He really couldn't build the relationships that he has been doing in this true off season, and then going into the season, it's just kind of night and day compared to what we've seen from last season, where he was very inconsistent. He says that himself, and going into this season, we've been hearing the stories of how he takes at least one wide receiver into the film room a day during the offseason. Watching film, they're trying to get into each other's heads, and the receivers are responding well. The receiver play last season was very underwhelming and almost maybe even cost games. There was a game against Marshall where a lot of drop passes could have been touchdowns, and you look at the score, and that's what it could have been. And you're seeing that now in full effect. Guys like Jamal Edgerton and Jaquan Burton, LeJontay Wester especially, he's distributing the ball very well now, and you can see it much more confident, much more decisive in this season. Again, albeit through 3 games, right? So we'll see against UCF, which will be the true test. But so far, it's been great for N'Kosi Perry, and I feel like the quarterback position is one you don't have to worry about in terms of FAU, right? There's a lot of other areas, but yeah, N'Kosi Perry, it's always comfortable and always good when you can have a guy returning and he's pretty damn good at the position.
Obviously, FAU starting quarterback is a transfer. UCF starting quarterback is a transfer. John Rice Plumlee. I forget the stat, but someone said I think it was maybe more than half of the guys starting are transfers at quarterback with the portal. How's the portal been for FAU? Is Taggart relying on that to kind of replenish a roster? Is it still more about building in the high school ranks? Is it 50-50? Has Taggart kind of been a big portal coach at FAU?
Yeah, he's definitely utilized it for sure. And I feel like he's one of those old school type coaches that he still wants to stay true. He wants to recruit. He wants to kind of build his team through that as well. But yeah, there's been some guys through the transfer portal, and again, just starting off with guys like N'Kosi Perry and some guys at the defensive back position. Again, I feel like the transfer guys, besides Perry, are more so for depth than rather than starters. Because when you look at the starters, I feel like a lot of them are kind of recruits or just younger players that he's kind of sout out. So definitely utilized him more this off season compared to last for sure. And obviously, COVID played a big role into that. So yeah.
Because I was scrolling down the roster, I'm like, yeah, I recognize that name, Florida State. Florida State, there's a few guys that kind of began their careers there, and obviously rejoined Taggart down in Boca and everything. So is Willie Taggart, obviously he has the offensive background, offensive coordinator. Is he? I know Brent Dearman is listed as the offensive coordinator. Is he a true OC, or does Taggart still have his hands on everything? Is he running the offense, calling plays, or what's kind of that dynamic like?
It seems like they're definitely working with each other, but it seems like Dearman is calling plays from the booth. especially through the first 3 games. And again,
Okay.
Dearman has been a very kind of I'm trying to find the word, but very a breath of fresh air. I see to this offense. You had Michael Johnson last year. Again, the offense and kind of stalled at a lot of points last season. But with Brent Dearman, especially the way he kind of coaches the players, I was there this morning and yesterday morning, and you could. It seems like he's been there for years. The way he's kind of talking with these guys, and again, it's very good to see. And obviously, he has some connections with UCF, right?
Yeah.
Malzahn gave him his first job at Auburn, and he's fishing buddies with Travis Williams.
Yeah.
Um, so it's going to be a really good storyline, and that might be a story I write in the next couple of days. But it's a lot of storylines in this game that people may not know about.
And the other storyline you didn't mention is Chip Lindsey. All right, UCF's offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, the former Troy head coach, had connections with Gus back at Auburn. But I don't even know how long he was at FAU. He was hired. I don't know if it was officially announced. I know he changed his Twitter profile back in mid-December after he was on the outs from Troy. Maybe he was there a week. He was recruiting. I'm not really sure how long he was there. And then when the opportunity opened up at UCF, he left FAU and rejoined Gus, who he had worked with before. So that's kind of another interesting dynamic as well. So beyond Perry, but I mean, look at the offense. Who are some of the players to watch that we'll probably see him get the ball, or how's the offense looking? Who are some of the top players, but beyond N'Kosi Perry?
Yeah, I mentioned some of the receivers, but kind of looking at the running back position, I feel like a lot of the success from this year, and even at some points last year, spawns from the running game. And Coach Dearman and Taggart says that if we have a good running game, we're going to win a lot of games this season. You got Larry McCammon, you got Zuberi Mobley, who just last game both had 100 yards each, and that was like the first time since 2018, since Devin Singletary, obviously current Buffalo Bills running back, and Kerrith White did that. So you're getting a lot of production there. Obviously, we don't know much about Johnny Ford, former USF
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
Missed the first 4 games, cited as personal reasons to Taggart. So we really don't know. Obviously, we're speaking to Taggart tomorrow morning, so maybe he'll give us a little more clarity on that. But if he's there, it's just another playmaker in this offense, And again, I mentioned some receivers. If they're healthy, which they kind of went down last game, but again, Jamal Edgerrin and Jaquan Burton, LaJohntay Wester had a career high 140, 145 yards. So this offense is way more deep than it was last season, where the running backs, it was just kind of Ford and the rest sort of like kind of backing him. But now it's like a much more guys kind of coming into their own, and that could be because of Coach Dearman and how he likes to utilize everybody in the team. So N'Kosi he has a lot of toys to play with, and throughout the first 3 games, he's done it well.
I know it's an early sample size, even for UCF. We don't know what to expect when he played an FCS team, and then the Louisville game was an enigma in a lot of ways. But is it safe to say the FAU defense is sort of the biggest question mark right now when you look, Charlotte isn't great, and I don't, you can never know what to expect against an FCS opponent. That result, but that going to Ohio and giving up 41 points, is that sort of the question mark where people want to see how they respond against UCF? And on that note, who are some of the defensive players to watch that are some of the playmakers on that side?
Yeah, again, the defensive performance against Ohio was obviously very disappointing because the DBs just kind of got lit up, again, giving up 41 points, and they pound the football as well. And the reason why it is, right, because I mentioned Evan Anderson's name. He's been out the past 2 games. He's going to be out this Saturday. And again, like I said, arguably their best defensive player. I mean, he's been so disruptive down the middle. And the guys to watch are guys like Jacob Merrifield, Keem Green, who are going to kind of be the next man up besides him and who have played well. But you mentioned it, the sample size is 3 games, and it's so hard to kind of figure out if this team is really going to be good, kind of going into conference play. And, again, because the season's a marathon, right? So it's going to be interesting. So besides those guys, I mean, guys like TJ Young, who I wrote a story about last week, again, one of the leaders of this team. You got Smoke Mungeon, defensive back there, who's been there the past couple of years. Those are guys in the defense, but again, a guy like Jaden Williams, very young guy who's been blitzing pretty well for Coach Orlando's defense. But you have to see better DB play. I know Plumlee has that dual threat ability, but I think one of the keys to this game is to kind of make him feel rattled. I know he's been a quarterback in the past, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think the past 2 years he's been a receiver.
Yes.
So I feel like that might be one thing they might try to tackle.
And I feel like that Louisville sort of gave opposing defenses the blueprint on how to defend them is kind of force them to throw the ball, and that's been the knock on him. Is obviously he's an athlete and he can run, but as far as reading defenses and getting rid of the ball quickly and knowing where to go and being accurate with the football, those are questions that all UCF fans have right now. Is how is he going to perform against another Division I defense this Saturday? So I would imagine all defenses going forward are going to force Plumlee to beat him through the air. But you kind of touched on when we first started talking about the excitement level for this game. I mean, is there a big buzz from the community and the student body? I know you guys did something a few years ago. You put all the students now behind the opposing bench. So does that sort of help the atmosphere too when you have a big home game like this?
It definitely does, and I feel like FAU has always been that school that people talk about on Twitter, especially in terms of like home games that are not big opponents, right? Where the attendance may not be what it should be. That the case this Saturday, it's not going to be like that. This is going to be a packed house, So, they're going to try to make UCF feel as not home as possible, obviously, because I think the last time UCF played here, it was a lot of UCF fans.
Yeah.
It wasn't like an overwhelming FAU majority. So I think we might see a little more of a half-half. We'll see. But like I said, the reason why I've seen this comparison of like what's more bigger, win against UCF for a conference championship, is because I feel like the fan base needs that extra jolt to kind of not only trust Willie Taggart and what he wants to do in the future, but just going into the AAC and again beating a team like UCF, which again I'm not sure on who I think. If I'm pretty sure FAU is going to win this, what I will say is that I feel like this might be the best chance FAU has had so far in the program history against UCF. So it's going to be rowdy in there. I know they've been kind of simulating crowd noise this week of practice, and it's going to be a fun one, man. And we'll see if FAU is up to the challenge again. Still, whether this UCF team is as good as it was in the past, it's still UCF. It's still a big Florida program, so it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if this series maybe gets renewed again. I think the return game, I don't have in front of me, is it maybe 24, 25? I know FAU is supposed to come back to UCF, but that's a big question for UCF. South Florida, going to another conference. UCF's going to the Big 12. That annual game with South Florida isn't there anymore, and you kind of like to have non-conference games if you're going to have to travel across the country in the Big 12. You like having close games. You like having a convenient game for your fans and teams. So it'll be interesting to see if maybe a couple games get added. I know Brian White was Danny White's brother, the former UCF AD, and there's some other UCF connections. Andy Seeley with administration, he used to be a UCF, so a lot of people know him real well and everything. So are fans excited about the conference move? Obviously, all the shakeups that happened over the past year, kind of the Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC started the domino that ended up with some American teams like UCF moving on, and they backfill with FAU. So what's kind of the vibe, the excitement level, moving into the American and maybe starting a new rivalry with South Florida?
Yeah, major excitement for sure. I mean, I feel like the past couple of years, I mean, since I attended FAU 4 years ago, it's people have been just wanting FAU to move up, more competition, new competition. And to me, again, it's definitely an upgrade, going from Conference USA to AAC, especially how Conference USA is going to be when all those teams are gone, right? So it's the excitement level is obviously very high. You love that ESPN deal, you love just the TV deals and stuff like that. But it's again, like you said, the new rivalries, and whether the Shula Bowl is still going to be a thing in the future is still kind of up in the air. I know Brian White and Taggart really want it, but we had to see if the money is there. But again, we've seen the new facilities around campus. It's much better than it was 4 years ago. The program is definitely on the rise. It was inevitable, but I think fans are happy that it came sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a similar situation, with UCF and USF and not knowing whether a rivalry will continue because it would have to be non-conference. Is FIU? I assume they would want it to continue. Have you heard any chatter about clearing schedules, or is it a mutual rivalry that both would want to see continue?
Definitely, there's no question. I feel like besides kind of the emotional roots, right, from Coach Shula and Schnellenberger and stuff like that. They want to see it continue. I'm not confident that it will happen. I would love to see it, but I think it might go into it. I'm not totally sure on this, is because the past years of the Shula Bowl, it really hasn't been close, and FAU kind of always dominated FIU, and FIU has their own struggles down south. But I know that both programs just want to see it happen so bad, and even with the new, kind of the new regime that's under Mike McIntyre right now in FIU. So I know fans would want to see it. I don't know if FIU fans would want to see it. The same thing happen over and over again, but I think for people, it's like you want to see that South Florida, bowl game every year, whether it's non-conference or not.
Yeah, and obviously, South Florida Bulls are going to be the same conference as they've been. I mean, we don't really know I don't know if, UCF doesn't know what their schedule looks like next year with conference. Do you think that could maybe be a new end of the season rise? Has it been chatter? Because UCF and USF always have been playing on Black Friday, that final weekend of the season. Do you think FAU, USF could maybe kind of take that spot in the conference? Has there been any chatter about that?
Yeah, I don't think there's been any chatter about it so far, but I think people, the very natural sort of feeling to have is that these two are going to be rivals. And whatever USF is at the point of their program right now, I think people are aching to see that. You're already seeing chatter between FAU fans and USF fans, whether it be under my mentions or just other stories. People, they're already talking to each other. So the rivalry's there.
And Taggart's there. That's another element. Taggart used to coach there.
Exactly. So now it's just time to play ball and see what happens. So I think fans are aching for that next season. But again, I don't want to predict the future, right? But we'll see how different FAU looks, right? And we'll see if USF goes through any changes as well. So, but I think fans are just really eager to see that.
Yeah, to wrap up, I think you said a few minutes ago that you kind of feel the most confident that maybe you've had when FAU has played UCF, for a chance to pull out the victory. Just how do you see this game going? I don't want to put you on the spot to get out a score. I don't even, sometimes people ask me that. I don't even know what to say sometimes, but what makes you confident? I mean, generally speaking, how do you see the game going? If FAU wants to win this game, like what do they need to do well on Saturday?
I think it's really defensively, and I'm definitely not saying that UCF defensively is kind of like a walk in the park, right? But from what I've seen so far, I think the offense will do fine, but really it is the defense. If you give 41 points to Ohio, which again, no offense to Ohio, obviously a MAC team well coached, what are you going to do to you? What's going to happen with UCF against you? So they got to make massive changes. They got to deal without Evan Anderson. Again, tomorrow there's some injury concerns on defense that I'm trying to get clarified as well. But really, it's going to be also stopping the run. It's going to be stopping Plumlee from kind of using his dual threat ability. I think that's what it's going to come down to. I can see this being a shootout. I can see this being sort of maybe like a defensive sort of match going on. But like you said, like I feel like out of all the games I've seen, it's like I just kind of don't know what's going to happen. Like I think we're probably going to see a UCF win, but I don't think it's going to be like a blowout that maybe most people think. I think the line's like 9-10 points, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, again, this is going to be an exciting game, and it's going to decide possibly what FAU is going to look like throughout the rest of the season.
Well, I appreciate your time, Zach. Thank you very much for joining me out of your busy schedule. I know UCF fans are, excited to learn more about FAU heading into Saturday, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brandon. Thanks.
All right, take care.
Take care.